We live, okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not really because
Okay.
where I am, who I am.
Okay.
And if I say anything, I said a lot.
Okay.
So thank you, you know, I'm glad I was able to come.
Okay.
Glad to see you.
All right. Awesome. Those words are words of wisdom if you know it or not, right? So if you don't know, those are wisdoms because you made it and you're here with us, and you know you stuck through whatever you said you were going to do previously. So those are encouraging words of wisdom. Let's give it up for my man. Okay. All right. So welcome to our fellowship. Our hospitality committee welcomes you on behalf of the hospitality committee.
Thank you.
You're welcome. In the spirit of love. All right.
So you're a spiritual leader and a hospitality.
For the time being, Miss Camille, Mama Camille, is one of our hospitality committee, and I was on her behalf. I know she was very eager to say her circle words today, but I didn't know she had any more words she wanted to share. So I figured I would just do it on her behalf. Is that okay, Mr. Twinkle? All right, thank you. Didn't get the words out that time, did you? You got thumbs up. But I understand that. That's communication. So communicatively, you spoke to me and I understood. So we're on the same page. All right. Without further ado, I know we have a dynamic guest today here, to say the least. This brother is well studied. This brother is an exceptional, extraordinary brother in the rights of diligence and in the rights of being an example in his studying constantly, and just being, I would say, a minister in his own right. And in a minister, I mean a teacher. Someone that teaches even when he don't know he teaches. Teach even when he's not expected to teach. Right? That's a teacher. That's a teacher. A teacher is one who enjoys letting others learn and enjoy understanding that sometimes you actually have to, a lot of times to be a teacher, you have to be objective. Meaning that you don't give the information to the student, you present the information to the student and allow them to make a decision. Right? The best decision that they've seen based on informed information that you have given them. So this brother is exemplary brother, an extraordinary brother, a well-read brother, well-dressed brother, smooth brother, casual brother, whatever brother you want to name. I think he fits all the brotherly categories. And so if you're ready, Brother Kevin, we can definitely get into it and allow you to elaborate on this meaningful discussion that you're going to have us get into today. And so without further ado, I introduce to you Wally Moore, Brother Kevin.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Give him a round of applause. Give him a round of applause.
I want to thank y'all for coming out in the rain, you know. I think, you know, so one thing I realized about that which is fertile, is able to produce. And I realized too that one of the most powerful systems is the reproduction system. And talk about someone that is powerful. You're talking about women, you know.
Sure.
And I also come to realize too that healing begins from the womb of a woman. Think about that now. All that a woman goes through and giving birth to a child. The resiliency of that womb, get it right back in shape. That's how powerful that womb is of a woman. And as that is a foundational stone, I will proceed on. we want to talk about the human experience. It's a very broad topic, but we want to try to narrow it down as best as we can. In doing so, we want to try to like synergize our energy, you know, because there is something that each and every one of us has to offer and bring to the table, you know. I remember James Foreman said this in the during the time of what they call the civil rights movement. He said, if we can't sit at the table, you know, maybe knock the legs off. So, but if we all sit at the table, and the more people that sit at the table, the more we learn to share and appreciate one another. And I'm still talking about the human experience. I can recall one time when, you know, we used to all sit in at the table and eat. Do some of y'all still do that now? I do. Yeah, sit at the table and eat. Yeah. With family. And at one time, remember, you know, we used to sit and watch TV together. You know, now people have TVs in their own room. You know. So have we become so alienated and isolated and ostracized from each other when it comes to this human experience? I realize this here is that planet Earth is a sociological structure where there are inclusions and exclusions, you know. Is it natural for the sheep to interact with the wolf? Is that natural? Yeah. So if the sheep interact with the wolf gonna wind up in killing the sheep. You know? There was a story about the sheep said to the wolf. He said, "Listen, I don't see species, so we both animals." The wolf said, "Okay, I like that type of thing." It tore his butt up. It tore his butt up. But what is the point of this here is that I think that we must come to a point in our lives in this human experience. We have to be careful in the manner and the way in which we interact and engage with certain people. The reason why I say that is that for the most part, we live in a society whereas that it takes advantage of our vulnerability. And when something takes advantage of your vulnerability, that hurts. That hurts. But if we are family now, we know that we're not going to intentionally hurt each other. So right now, as we are family in this gathering, we know that this topic of discussion is designed to heal, but not hurt. I want to somewhat share this too, in this wise. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad said this here: the hardest person to teach is the person who thinks he or she already knows. That person uses what they think they know to argue against what they are being taught. As a result, they don't accept instruction. Now, we heard of something called bipolar, right? Unbalanced, vacillating between two extremes. I like it this way. When you teach on personification of what your nature represents, that becomes your politics. Now, what do I mean by that? You see an elephant, right? They represent animal appetites. So in the human experience, this earth has an appetite. Huh? Think about it. So we are here to try to have control over our urges and our appetite. Some of us are dealing with an imaginary hurt. And in that imaginary hurt, we are holding on to things of the past. So it prevents us from moving on. In fact, about it, it becomes a craving for us. We crave to hold on to things of the past, and things that hurt us. Now, I don't know if some of you may not participated in this. Someone ever hurt you and you want to go back and deal with that person even though they hurt you, and they come back and hurt you again? Huh? You ever had that experience, man? What? I'm talking about the human experience. We are here to engage in progress of this nature here, of this human experience, of interacting with one another in a civil and a humane way. So why do we go back to those things that has hurt us and go back and receive a worse hurt than we ever felt before? Huh? That means there's something going on in our what? In our mind, in our thinking. Because we're trying to understand why that takes place. But it's been passed on to the person who has been hurt. How can a person love you when they themselves have been loved? Huh? How can we love one another if we don't first learn to what? To love ourselves. Huh? So we're still talking about engaging in this human experience. Now, let's look at the word human. Right? Linguistically, if I may. We look at the word hue, H-U-E. It is a carving out of something. And when you carve out something, it comes into a shape or a form. And when it comes into a shape and a form, and if it's not the way that it should be, like a potter and a clay, the man who's shaping you like a canoe, he's shaping you, but if he don't like what he sees, he does what? Boom! He beats it down and shapes it the way that it needs to go. And what did I mean by this here now? The most powerful thing that has been given to us is our intellect, our faculty to reason one with another. So, if those things which have shaped us has hurt us, that means that our thinking becomes distorted. Huh? Distorted thinking. And one of the bases of distorted thinking is unfair comparisons. Huh? I can't compare myself to nobody, so you can't compare yourself to me. Huh? The Native Americans say, listen, you can't talk about me if you ain't walking my moccasins. So we have to walk in our own shoes. Now, the first thing we realize, if we look at the letter A of the alphabet system, it has an A frame. And you see, it has two legs. Huh? That means what's required upon us is we stand on our own 2 feet. Huh? We stand on our own conviction. But the human experience, we got to be clear about it too, is very fragile. When you look at your child, or you gave birth to your child, you look at him, you see how fragile that little child is. So you want to try to nurture that child, and so that child can become strong enough to be able to stand on his own 2 feet. If that which we call the Creator, don't you think he sees that about us? That we be able to stand on our own 2 feet, that we become strengthened. And if we become strengthened, what is a requirement? To strengthen each other. I realize this too, that people make an excuse for doing that which is required of them, which is to use their intelligence. People make an excuse not to use their intelligence. So we have to think. And how we interact with one another is in the best of ways and the best of manners. Now, I'm going to build on that word best now. Anytime I try to present something to anyone, I build on what I say. Best in ancient Kemet means the protector of women and children. Huh? How so? Because children are the extension of their parents' social relationships. I'm going to repeat that. Children are the extension of their parents' social relationships. You wouldn't want your child to interact with another child whose parent is going through problems, and yet you see that their parent have not been able to resolve that problem, and that child becomes a problem child, then therefore your child get caught up into something that he had no business being a part of. Huh? I wish y'all hear me now. You have to hear the warning signs. Now, let me say the human experience. Let's bring it home. We have a young man in here, right? We know that there was a brother whom the parents did not saw something was wrong. Saw something was wrong with the child. They saw something was wrong with the child. They saw a warning. They was trying to help the child, not their child, but the other child. They was trying to help him. But yet, the parent wouldn't listen, and the child wouldn't listen. And therefore, the child, God, forgive me, the child got in some trouble. Huh? So we have to, this human experience, we have to also see the warning signs. We also have to see the warning signs. So, we say this is here about Afrocentric activities, correct? Afrocentric activities. I'm going to share something here in regards to that. And then we want to try to talk about it.
Let me ask you a question.
Yes, sir.
So did y'all do the Afrocentric, did y'all do the activities? Or
yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, everything. So what is did you get the PowerPoint ready?
Where's your
Oh, you need my thumbs in?
Yeah.
Here. Yeah, man. We proceeded on. Now, this is something in the book called Afrocentric Thought and Praxis, which means how you merge theory into practice, intellectual history. Now watch this here now. The term Africa-centered has the same intent as the term Afrocentric. While there is some nuanced variation in meaning for each. In this work, the terms are used interchangeably. The term Afrocentric thought and praxis refers to two related realities. Let me stop right there. Two related realities. I realize this here. Is that how do you interpret reality? How do you interpret it? It's a question I want to throw out. And how does you can relate to that reality? Okay, now, if I look at the sun, the moon, or the stars, right? For me, we see that they all in cooperation or in harmony with one another, right? We, and certain planets revolve around the sun, and then some planets refuse to be contaminated by anything, so it has a magnetic field or magnetic force to preventing that from preventing that from happening. But the key is that they are in harmony with one another. That's their reality. So what has happened to the reality down here? Are we interacting with one another in harmony as the guidance that has been shown in the cosmos and down to here? What has happened? Now, this is my theory, what has happened. I realize that this universe is a learning environment. It is a test, and then we learn the lesson. But when you go to school, they give you the lesson, and then they give you the test. Out of order. That's what I'm trying to say. It is out of order. So what we are relating to, and we have made it natural, It's something that is out of order. So we must get it back in order. And how we get it back in order, I say we must go through a resocialization process. Yes. Let me proceed on with this here. Okay. Afrocentric thought practice refers to two related realities that sometimes manifest as one reality. Afrocentric thought is used to refer to written offerings that are Afrocentric, for example, theory, history, poetry, prose, transcribed speeches, and or interviews, and more. Afrocentric practices refers to thoughtful, practical application of African-centered information. Ain't that something? Merging the thought into practice. Because there's a saying, as a man thinketh, so shall he do. But you can think a thing, but don't do it. You can think a thing, but don't do it. Now, I'm going to share something here, because I want to get some exchange here now. Since we got a brother here. It says that our natural inclination is to do good. You think that? That our natural inclination to do good. This is open for discussion now. Our natural inclination is to do good. You think that's so? It's natural.
I think for the most part, yeah.
Okay.
And I agree, some people.
Okay. Because we're all going to work. It says we're going to worship something.
I think it depends on what you mean by good.
Good in nature, good in behavior, good in attitude.
And I also think it depends on who you mean good to and good for.
Good to yourself, good to others, good for humanity. What you say, Mr. Huh?
Freedom comes in many ways. So we do the natural inclination to be good to yourself. That didn't mean taking from someone else. So he's saying it depends on what you mean by the other. So if my natural inclination is to be good for me, right? That in turn means now someone else not going so good. If they got something, I might take it from them.
Sound like Lil Wayne.
So, you're saying that this individual, he's just saying that it's good for him to look out for his own interest? Yeah. Okay. That's a good thing. Because we see that that's happening. It's evident that it's happening, that people are doing things and saying that it's good for them because it benefits them. Yeah.
The question is
is he saying no?
I'm saying it depends on what you mean by your question. So you say it's naturally, we naturally people are looking to be good. Right? And then
I was taking this out of the book. It says we have a natural inclination to do good. And people worship those things. It becomes a form of worship. It becomes their work. That's what they do. Go ahead. I want to hear.
I would say if they have a value system, such as virtues of Maya, then that would probably be in place, that their natural inclination would be to do good. But like you said before, I think some people, because I think that there are people who don't practice a positive value system, or what I would consider to be a positive value system.
Yes.
They would be like people that are more inclined to dog eat dog, or
yes,
I got mine, you get yours, whatever. But we're gonna try to follow virtues of Maya, or even the Nguzo Saba, and we're gonna probably try to be a good person.
Yes. So like a code of conduct, huh? Yeah. You want to say something? You want to? Okay. You want to say something?
I think that people's behaviors many times they mean well, at least for themselves. Does that also but that doesn't always equate to the person on the other end of the spectrum benefiting or that being good to them. No. I think so. The behavior is good. Even if I smack somebody, I might be trying to get out frustration. So that's good for me for a moment, But it doesn't mean it's necessarily going to be good for me in the long run. It doesn't mean it's going to be good for the person who got smacked.
Yeah.
But I think the intent was good.
Yeah.
To get the frustration out. However, I think that good is relative. I think good. I don't think when I listen to the word natural, I don't think that you can have a value system and then say that's natural, because a value system is a creation. So natural means you're born with, and it's. But I guess it can become natural as a practice. After you practice something for a while. But I also think when you look at, I don't think a value system itself always works out for the other party. So, but yeah, I think that's very relative.
Right. So something that you come into, something that must be developed. Go ahead, Bilal.
One thing I like is in life you start out dependent. And you're always dependent. You never leave that. You start out dependent, your parents raise you, stuff, and you become somewhat independent. And then the third stage is becoming interdependent with nature itself. So it's a three-stage process that everybody has to struggle to work with, and understanding the human experience. Because without understanding your human experience, you're going to be lost.
All right. Anyone else? All right. I want to share something else from a book called Mental Alchemy. We're still talking about the human experience now. Being able to distinguish between conflict and attachment. In the chapter 4, it says, "Are good and evil absolute?" Okay. The theological conceptions and dogma of most religions set up certain standards of behavior which suggest that there is an absolute good and evil. Such standards or codes are, however, quite relative to the human reference in conception. What y'all get out of that? I'm going to read it again. The theological conceptions and dogma of most religions set up certain standards of behavior which suggest that there is an absolute good and evil. Such standards or codes are, however, quite relative to human reference and conception. I'm going, because you want to say something. I'm going. All right. The conception of good is basically psychological. It is related to the evaluation of personal experience. When we term as good, all we term good. The so-called moral good is an emotional and intellectual satisfaction. We're getting the egos. A person for religious or other reasons establishes a code of behavior which he thinks necessary for his moral or spiritual well-being. Since the required conduct is the fulfillment of moral precept, it is intellectually and emotionally satisfying, and consequently is accepted as good. What's your take on it? Elaborate on that thing.
I was trying to get your stuff together.
That's cool. All right, I'll go on then. Such a positive state or quality as good enters its way, enters its way as a condition, which is termed evil. Simply put it, evil is that which injures or as the opposite of pleasure for the human being. The disagreeable, the harmful are thus evil. Disagreeable, the harmful are thus evil. each good as it assumes a positive quality in the mind of man, also constructs a converse conception, just as light suggests its own opposite, which is darkness. Think about that. Let's look at this term called evil and good, and the standards that God faith or religion. It is their standard. But is it your standard? Have you adopted yourself to the standards of others? Huh? And unable to set your own standards and your own criteria. And when you are unable to do that, someone else controls you, then it becomes very dogmatic. And you become very rigid, unable to escape. I call it the imprisonment of rigidness. Because you have no flexibility in your life. You're unable to really think for yourself. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad said that vision steals from the source of your thinking. So what is the source of our thinking? What influences our thinking when it comes to this human experience? The human experience is a fragile one. But yet we must strengthen the fragileness of it so that we can become strong. But I tell you what, that which we think we know, we really don't know at all. And we realize that there's more to be learned. This is a learning environment. This is a dialogue. This is a discussion. This is an exchange. It is talking about the human experience. Go ahead, no?
Yeah, so within that experience, for me, the one thing that must be maintained for one's survival is common sense.
Common sense.
Common sense. A lot of people believe it's their common sense. Because what happens is once trying time comes out, like we have today, some people have lost their mind a little bit before this time, and now they're losing it more. And those who haven't lost, they're losing it because they lost the common sense. That's needed.
Good. I realize there's two struggles. Common sense versus nonsense, progression versus regression. Think about it, you know? Think something. As a parent, you try to teach your child to have what? Common sense. You can think. Huh? Because we confuse education with intelligence. What, you want to say something? Yeah. And progression versus regression. We got to be forward thinkers. And let's look at Frederick Douglass.
What's common sense?
Common sense, really, man, is that which we find in common. And that which we find in common, we call it intelligence. Why? Because it's intelligent upon us to work together in cooperation as opposed to in competition. That's common sense. So to work against each other and compete with one another, that don't make no sense at all. It doesn't. Yeah. Let's look at Frederick Douglass then. Let me see what he said. How his experience, his human experience. Yeah, he did. It's a strategy, man. In a book called Frederick Douglass, The Prophet of Freedom. He said, Douglass' world of extremes flowed from his memory in sure description as well as in metaphors of explanation. Most of the time, he kept himself squarely within the frame of his canvas, which means we have to have control of our own narrative. He identified hunger and cold. That's key here. He identified hunger and cold as his primary suffering at the Y plantation. He spent every day almost in a state of nudity, wearing his low linen hanging down to his knees. Think about that, man. Can y'all make the connection to now? What did you put the connection you see in this in there? We're gonna make the connection. He said, hanging down to his knees. I'm not talking about anybody, I'm talking about how people wear their clothes. Because we're still dealing with the residuals of things, man. So hanging down to his knees, he stayed on the sunny side of the house. Another strategy. He stayed on the side of the house that will give him life. He tried not to remain in a state of a victim mentality, of being a victim. So he was making a transition from victim to being victorious. And this is what we're all trying to do, is make a transition from being a victim to being victorious. If we look at the successful people who have come out because they didn't wallow in no pity party. They didn't wallow in being a victim. You got S.B. Fuller, the businessman. I mean, anyone. You can name a lot of them. You got How to Be Well, self-help. They didn't. Sojourner Truth. They said something about Sojourner Truth. They said, we care nothing more about you than Sojourner Truth than the flea bite. He said, well, the Lord will, I keep you scratching. That's what she said. Yes. So, he stayed on the sunny side of the house, in the corner of the kitchen chimney, in the winter to find warmth. We're talking about the human experience. Bob Marley would say, love and affection, to find warmth. But how can Earth, Wind, and Fire say the way of the world? Child is born for heart of gold, way of the world makes his heart so cold. The human experience, man, is to live a civil and a humane life as a citizen of humanity. At the Anthony House, the slave children, like so many things, look at this, ate cornmeal mush out of a large wooden tray or drum. I did that. Huh? What are we dealing with now? We're dealing with the humanity of a people that will make another human person to go through what they went through, but yet that person did not dwell in his pity. A way to tap into his resiliency, to tap into a way that would help him get out of the situation that he was in. It's a strategy. So we have to find strategies and ways to deal and interact when it comes to this human experience. As you look at the slide there on the screen, it has something called Common Humanity Mission. And maybe Dennis, brother, Chief Minister, can help me with this slide here. Hit the switch.
You need to switch it?
Not yet. But we see something that was helped created by another brother from Ethiopia. Do you have another copy of the paper? Yeah. Thank you. His name was go back. How did I get in there?
Well, you got me multitasking there.
That's cool. That's cool. But because I would work with it. Man, let me tell you something. You put up anything up there with me, I'm gonna work with it. I'm gonna make it happen. Huh?
I'll send you my check.
Yeah. I'll see something. Listen, Common Humanity Mission. Trying to promote the value of self-worth. Now, why is that? Do you think for the most part that many people are lacking self-worth? Huh? Now, and I said the mandate is to cultivate the potential that is in us all. Brother Dennis said something one time before when I gave an explanation about the natural inclination to do good. He said, man, it must be cultivated. He said it must be cultivated. It must be cultivated. It just don't happen. Just like Brother talks about peace. Peace is relative. It's relative. You got to come into it. You got to come into it. I said, communicate with precision and clearer image to the world through 5 channels of communication. Why did I say that? 5 channels of communication. First of all, the first channel of communication, we first got to have an understanding. We first got to have an understanding. And when you have understanding, you have balance, and that's clarity. Understanding. After you have understanding, then you move to tolerance. Now, you know, when you interact with your child, we still deal with the human spirit. We interact with your child. You know, you're trying to get an understanding. Then you get understanding. You know how much you're going to tolerate from your child, what you ain't going to tolerate from. Huh? Let's get that understanding. You know what I'm saying? Now, I'm not going to tolerate that now. You know what I'm saying? So some things you just ain't going to tolerate. You know, when you go up the elevator, and the elevator says it has a weight capacity of such and such before the breaks down or something. Temperament/temperance. The temperament and the temperance. So we have to understand our temperament is our attitude, and that which we must control is our attitude. And then we have the confidence. We have the respect. That's cool, but I don't know how that's going on there, but
oh, you don't like that?
We can look at it though. I like that slide there. You know, I always say, you know, I tell you, this is me here. This is me. I'm curious. I'm curious. I'm always curious. As a sign, you know, when you do a sign, you know, but this is a lot of times, man, grieving. A lot of times, man, our experience and our learning and dealing with this society in America comes out of our grievance. Out of grievance. You can go on, brother. I don't know what I gave you, because that ain't.
Is this the right PowerPoint?
Nah.
This ain't the right PowerPoint? Mm-hmm. Okay, that's one for the happy people.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, that's cool.
I see two on here. What's the call?
Thought-provoking.
I see a STEAM workshop and Go Beyond.
Nah, you didn't download it. That's what happened. It didn't download.
I didn't download it.
Oh, I didn't download it. I sure did. That's cool. But yeah, so the thing is, though, we have to do our best to realize that do you think that we know that everybody grieves differently? You know what I'm saying? Well, I mean, why is that? I mean, is it different cultures, different ethnicity? I know I'm answering the question. I mean, you know, when we lose something, I'll tell you this. I'll share this with you. I called a lady today. She's about, I guess, 80 now. And I asked her, no, I didn't download, that's me. I don't know how we can do it, but I called her and I asked her, are you grieving due to the loss of your husband, right? And the husband been dead 3 years, right? You know what she said? Not one neither. What did she say? She said, not one neither. And then she said, listen, she said, the Lord took him, he didn't take me. He said, my life got to go on. That's what she said. I said, gee, wait, that makes sense. You know what I'm saying? She said, my life got to go on. She said, even if the Lord bring him back, I don't want him. I said, God damn.
Understanding the human experience.
I'm not talking about that. I'm serious. I wouldn't want him.
She took it to another level.
Yeah, that was funny. That's what you might want to cross the name. She said, I did all I needed to do when he was sick. I helped him. I did all that little wife what I was supposed to do. You know, she said she got to move on. She did. She said she talked with a lady who had lost her husband over 20 years. And she said, because all she's doing is keeping her husband, is thinking about her husband over 20 years. She said she is so miserable. She's so sad. She said, I can even smell his presence in the house. She said, honey, the only thing you can smell is his clothes. She said, you want to get them out of there? Yeah.
So you want to take a break and or
yeah,
assignment
so
or something? And
yeah, we could do that. Good stuff. Good idea. So we'll take a break and then we'll move on from there. Yeah. Thank you. We'll get the PowerPoint up going. Good stuff. Yep. Good stuff.
There was a question out there.
Yeah. Good stuff. Yeah, so I'm going to try to pull up something too, though. So we get that PowerPoint going. Yeah, stop. Let me get it back up. I want to share this one with you. Check this out.
Where's the PowerPoint?
Download thought-provoking ideas. Should you see it?
Is your computer?
Yeah. All right, I'm gonna say something with you. What is the answer? I said the key to social life is family. The joy that brings in participation in that activity. What I have found out is that those who do not have that joy will find joy in misery. Huh? Ain't that something?
Say that again.
Yeah. I guess if you gotta fix it in your book, I need to tell you.
Oh,
I messed up something. You gotta fix it in your book. I said, the key to social life is family. And the joy that brings in participation in that activity. What I have found out is that those that do not have that joy will find joy in misery. Huh?
keep feeding that misery, the negative way of thinking.
I got you, yeah. That's something.
Yeah, everything was supports that. You're right. You look for things that support that.
Ain't that something though?
Now that's natural. You're talking natural earlier.
Yes.
No, really. That's the natural way of doing things. I mean, whether you're miserable or not miserable, whatever state you're in, you're gonna look for things to support that. That's natural. You see? And maybe your own detriment.
Oh, okay, now look, okay, now you said natural. So is it natural for people, Brother Kennedy say that, but putting them in on, putting them on it. Is it natural if you've been hurt in life, natural? Yeah, is it a natural to be, what they call homosexual? Is it a natural response? Because you've been hurt.
Right.
He's resisting something, but he says, now I'm not, he's saying I'm homosexual. Is that natural? I ain't talking about just to be, I ain't talking about, I'm talking about he responding to something natural.
No.
Hey, Kevin, how you gonna put my private conversation out?
Oh, okay.
I told you, a lot of people can't even have that conversation.
Hey, shit, it's cool.
Whether homosexuality is natural,
Yeah.
but what the response with the question is.
Yeah.
Personally, I don't believe it's natural. That's my thing. I don't believe it's natural, but I think a person experience may cause them to feel a certain thing.
Right.
Or will believe that that's their natural way of being. Maybe because I don't know. So
That's cool.
that's my
Yeah.
Well, the experiences affect the perception. That's the key. Whatever you experience, perception of things. So, if you're not given a different understanding of what you're perceiving, the things that support that way of thinking, they gravitate to it. First, I was going to look for love and understanding. They may go to a game for that. You go to games for that because they feel they didn't get that at home. Not just homosexuality. They go to games too.
So is it natural though? Like let's think about games, right? When you look at games, is it natural for people to join games, or is the game just a manifestation of what is natural? So what is natural is people to look for love, caring, protection. So we get caught up in what they're doing, not necessarily the response and the reaction, and then that being the opportunity. The game is opportunity. The homosexual partner is opportunity. So it's on here on your whatever this is.
Okay.
But it's just an opportunity. Now, the question is not whether or not homosexuality is natural.
Yeah.
Is it what he put out there? Is the response natural?
Right.
So there's too many responses.
It's not.
So
It's just feeding her.
So if you there's a certain amount of people who would actually respond that way due to the hurt and pain that they experience. Now we know that this is how people respond when they get hurt. It's kind of like saying, if I've been traumatized, is it natural for me to now be flustered when I see people? Is that natural?
It's a natural response to an unnatural turn something that happens. If it happened to anyone else, I'm pretty sure the likelihood of them responding in a similar way goes up.
if a person has been traumatized, they have similar traits,
Yes,
right?
that's what I'm
So it's not that things are. I mean, we act like the world is inflict trauma. Trauma is natural. It's just like now. I mean, so the world is going to inflict. Trauma is just going to happen. So people are going to respond, and when people respond a certain way to certain things, I think it'll be very difficult to tease out that is not natural. A natural response for a certain amount of people. So
It's all natural.
it's called surviving.
It's right. It's all natural based on your thinking. Based on the way you're thinking. You're thinking that it's natural.
I don't even know if it's a question whether it's not natural. Honestly, I don't think a thing can be almost unnatural. However, that's a whole other conversation.
Right.
But definitely.
But I'm just saying natural in the sense that
Trina said, yeah. I mean, a response is a response.
Right.
If I'm getting beat up by men, my daddy left me, and I'm now 14, and I'm now 18, I can't deal with men.
Right. We were talking about that yesterday as far as what's his name? Mom's Maybe. Mom's Maybe got raped several times. She went out a nightclub. So she stopped backing men.
And you still looking for love. So it's not the opportunity, it's the response natural. To go away from that which is hurt you is natural.
That's their thing. I mean, I even think of Billie Holiday too. So you know what I'm saying? So what she turned to.
Now whether it fits in your values, that's a whole other thing.
Yeah, man.
You know what I mean?
Tammy Terrell, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. That's serious stuff, man. I'm serious. So my thing is that when I realized that when it comes to like healing, I think that the extent of the healing takes place when we're responding to the systematic abuse, responding to a systematic abuse of a dehumanization process. We're responding to a systematic abuse of a dehumanization process, because what I understand about healing is that it does not mean that the damage existed. It's that you don't let the damage to control it. And that's a challenge. That's really a challenge. So that's why you have to be, and for the most part, in a healthy healing environment to help you overcome those things where that say, okay, we're going to be there, we're going to care for one another, we're going to do our best, to assist one another in the best of ways. So that's what we're responding to, like abuse, the dehumanization process. So yeah, man. So then that deals with the attitude. And when it deals with the attitude, it deals with the temperament. I mean, the temperament, the being controlled. And therefore it deals with one becoming more coherent. Yeah, and when you're more coherent, you become forward.
But shouldn't a dehumanizing process be abused? I wouldn't want to support a dehumanizing process.
No, not at all. No, I got you, man. Nope, not at all. Not at all. Yeah.
A lot of things we have to radio and dehumanizing people. They support it, they don't see it. I mean, for example, you can just take the police, for example. How the systems, this regulation is set up, the standard. I mean, yeah, my people that are working there, they don't see that they're helping to uphold the racist system. They don't see it. You know what I'm saying? They think they're helping. Yeah, but understand who you're helping.
That's another point, because one thing I realized that even in trying to help people, sometimes we become enablers too. You know what I'm saying? But we mean well, but we wind up, hurting.
And I think also whether a response is adaptive or maladaptive is a question as well.
No question.
So I think sometimes because of our values, our core values and beliefs, sometimes we can't really see the behavior, and because we get blinded by our core values.
Yes.
One doesn't have to accept that. Homosexuality is something they believe in.
Yeah.
It's just a reality that if you go to prison and you start seeing all these men around each other, which you might say is an unnatural environment.
Yeah.
But in this quote unquote unnatural situation, there's going to become some nature's going to start to understand.
Right. That's natural.
That's called adapting.
Yeah, that's right.
So that you agree with it or you don't agree with it, we just know it happens.
Yeah.
And you can give a person a religion, or you give a person a core value system, and that ain't strong enough to keep them from human nature.
Yeah. Yeah, man. That's serious there. I mean, that's really serious because we talk about something in an environment that I consider to be that is for me it's not healthy. You know, we live in an unhealthy environment, but at the same time, your nature kicks in. You know what I'm saying? Like, if for example, go ahead.
I'm just thinking, you say a prison system, but sometimes I think about some religion where they like priests, they not allowed to marry and all that type of stuff. And you see,
No, but that's
you know when you have that nature, the desire is still inside of you because you depriving yourself of something that is
that's impressive.
Natural.
That's impressive. Yeah.
Well, they're not.
Go ahead. Not a good point.
I mean, it's put into society, you know, that they're doing it, but behind women's
He said, well, he said that the picture not being projected. Yeah, the picture not being
projected. Like she
projected.
said, the urge is there.
Yeah.
You got none, you know.
So, that's interesting because I mean, you know, we take sex education class. I mean, you ain't got to teach no child sex education. I think I got section women. But
it's teaching them to be responsible.
Sometimes it's best.
That's cool. That's cool.
What you're saying is naturally they're gonna find what fits where. I understand. That's a whole nother conversation.
Yes, sir. But yeah, so that's good stuff. That's good stuff.
Clarity is the key. Yeah. Because conflict comes out of lack of clarity.
Interesting. Because I realize that the source of all conflict is attachment. So, but we got to get into the thing. But I'm gonna share something else with you. Yeah, the source of conflict is attachment. Yeah. So I'm gonna share something. Okay. I say, all right. To have a weak intellect is due to the power of one's inability to reason. So in turn, one's reasoning power is underdeveloped, which makes a person behave in an immature manner. So what needs to be replenished is the social continuity of one's power to reason. Think about that. One's ability has been, reasoning power has been underdeveloped. Like the manner and way in which we interact, we want to be reasonable. If we deal with this human experience, we want to be reasonable with one another. We don't want to do things that is not reasonable. And I always learn we need to learn from reason from the premise of conversation. So it's through a dialogue, it's through a discussion, it's through an exchange. I remember in the SNCC program, they call the Inner Circle. I have the book. I may read it. But he was talking about, man, they sat in dialogue all night. He said they was rebels, man. They was going at it all night long. But yet they were in dialogue, trying to come up with a solution to their problem. They didn't care how long it took. They were determined to make sure that they bring forth a solution to their problem.
Was it their problem or was it the problem?
It was a problem that was put on them.
Right.
Yeah, the problem that was put on them, right.
Oh, it was put on.
Yeah, it was a problem that was put on them. Now, you got it? Okay. You got it. But I'm going to share something from that book. I'm going to share something, then we go to the slide. Thanks, brother. Here we go. Stokely Carmichael book, Ready for Revolution. It says, each is in some way, talking about the crew, is a these be some stubborn folk. Most are leaders back at their schools. None are particularly good at taking orders or allowing themselves to be intimidated. And if they don't believe in something, you can flat out forget it. But they do believe generally in what the group is trying to do, which is to fight injustice and racism. Did you hear what he said? That's how they was working it out. I'm gonna read it again. Each in some way a rebel. these be some stubborn folk. Don't you know some stubborn folk? Huh? You know some stubborn people, don't you, man? That's okay if y'all don't, I do. And I'm one of them. You know what
You one of them.
Yo, yeah. Most are leaders back in their schools. None are particularly good at taking orders. I'm one of them. Or following them, or allowing themselves to be intimidated. I'm another one. And if they don't believe in something, you can flat out forget it. But they do believe generally in what the group is trying to do. That's all. That's what's important. Whatever it is, if we're talking about moving from victim to being victorious, it makes no difference if we're going to disagree or whatever. We know that we are trying to push from being a victim to being victorious. We have to make that paradigm shift. Or we have to be clear on the mission. Whatever the mission is, we have to be clear on it and work ourselves through. Now, I want to give credit to one sister, Ella Baker, in this book here. Okay. Of course, don't keep saying here in this book. Of course, it is important that we all agree. But it is just as important that we all understand however long that takes. We have to work with people where they are. Now, some folk don't say much, but you watch them, they are listening very carefully and thinking. Some are dealing with these questions for the first time, but they are learning and soon they'll be speaking. And SNCC, they have to feel free to speak. That's important, however long it takes. Miss Baker was right. As you can see, I've never forgotten the conversation. I mean, this Baker was saying in the book. The conversation, it became an article of faith for me in all the organizing I have done during my life, because we came out of that process. What came out of that process was more than an organization or even a philosophy. It was really a culture, a way of dealing among ourselves with the people where the people we were trying to organize. Somewhere along there, very early, we took to calling ourselves a band of brothers in a circle of trust. I believe we were. But participatory democracy was neither theory nor ideology. It was simply necessary. There were real issues to resolve, a clear role to define, a collective identity to agree on. We said a collective identity to agree on. The collective identity is more powerful than the individual. So we are trying to develop a collective identity that we can agree on. The human experience, attachment or connection, thought-provoking ideas are resolved. For me, the issue is character resolve, and character is the outgrowth of one's humanity. As you see, science, the social, cultural science, technology, agriculture, industrialists, even though industrial age is over, but we're here to be industrious people, to be productive. I say that we are communicators, find out we have in common. We are cultivators, and we are promoters. And the values is opportunity, expression, because we have an opportunity here to express our appreciation for life. Next slide. Brother. I can come over there. The music is playing, but it's cool. So. What's the music? That's a beautiful thing, amen. That was beautiful, you know. I think far too many times in the human experience, we get bogged down on what they call mundane things. You don't realize, man, that the nature of beauty of a flower. You can see how folks interact with a cat. You know, just the nature, the beauty of nature. You know, it's just kind of baffled to me, man, to us a lot of times to overlook, man, and not continue to cultivate an environment of serenity. A healing environment of serenity, man, that we become less stressful, less tension that we have with one another. And like Brother Sar teaches the Tai Chi. I mean, it's just a beautiful thing, man, to create this serenity, to create the motion of being in sync, of being one, you know, with yourself, with playing a part in your healing process, you know, as we engage and interact with one another, man, in love, and harmony, and peace, even though they consider to be relative terms, but we come into it gradually because we came into this world gradually. It was a gradual process. And that's a beautiful thing. So therefore, I am very appreciative for the opportunity to engage in this environment, in the nature of this environment. I have some papers in front of you all. I don't know if you all can be able to look at them and see them. If not, we'll move on to the next slide as we continue to engage in this human experience. Analyzing attitude and behavior patterns. Weighing with balance. When you have understanding, you have balance and understanding. Speaks with clarity. You want to be clear. You want to be clean. You want to be concise. We want to move from victim to being victorious. It means we have to change our focus. We have to deal with our attitude. We have to deal with our behavior. I had a discussion with a brother. He was talking about God. And I said, that's abstract to me, brother. He said, it got to be someone to create all this. I said, brother, I know something. But man, it's someone had to do it. Dogmatic. Very dogmatic. I said, brother, you're not hearing me. I'm cool with you saying, but I'm saying something. I ain't saying someone. Because that which we call God is a thought that materializes to me from the mind. That what you think you found, you don't find. You know it's more to be seen. It's more to be known. It's more to be learned. The infinite. The infinity. And then he realized that, okay, I said, brother, you said that Muhammad taught brotherhood for 23 years, right? I said, you know what? You know what change in environment is your behavior. Say nothing about that. So don't give me all that talk now. You want to change the environment, change your behavior. You see how the environment changes. Some of you know who have children. You know that you ain't show them certain things. You mean you ain't tell them you change, you create a behavior that they could see. Because children, they may not listen to you, but they watch what you do. They watch what you do. Children learn in picture form becomes a meaning, and the meaning becomes an emotion. Act upon it's called income graphics. So I say, I want to support this human experience. I said that unity is stronger than diversity, and oneness is stronger than conflict. Anyone has something to say on this? So I move on. Move on. Remember last week, the last session we had, Brother Dennis was talking about this too. I'm pulling you in a lot of things, because if what you say is relevant, I'm going to pull you in. I'm reinforcing anything anyone says. Like Sister says, you can't deny what's in front of you. So we're still weighing in the balance. We're analyzing attitude, behavior, pattern, ways in the balance. There is a scientific dictum, which states that everything that exists in some amount, if it exists, it can be measured. How do you assess the unknown? But yet you must first calculate that which is known. That's what they call mathematics. I'm still weighing the balance, still talking about the human experience. Is it true that we do not recognize among ourselves, our measurements of importance are generally faulty and speak mainly to superficial realities of life? That's Bobby Wright said that. Both of them are Bobby Wright. Superficial. We measure, Dr. King said, we measure and engage and interact with one another based upon our wealth. Based upon our position, our esteem, position, whatever you want to call it, entitlements or labels, whatever. Very challenging indeed. Anyone has anything to say about that? Next slide, please. Dr. King said this here. An individual has not started living until he can rise above the narrow confines of his individualistic concerns to the broader concerns of humanity. Still talking about the human experience. You want to be a peaceful, serene, loving, caring environment, interaction with one another. For the most part, we agree on the surface, but beneath the surface, we're at odds with one another. Dr. Seaman said about culture. She says culture, when it becomes, you got to take a very serious look at culture when it becomes destructive. That's what she said. We have a fixation on it. And we have a fixation on a culture that is being destructive because we can't see beyond our own perception. Our own ideology, our own philosophy, whatever you want, if it's ideology or not. It's maybe a philosophy. Because he said culture is dynamic, it always changes. He says this: one day the nation will rise up and live. And the true meaning of its creed, this faith creed will be able to transform the genuine discord, the strife, the envy, the hatred, the quarrelsome of our nation into a beautiful sympathy, brotherhood. Next line, brother. This is my marketing dynamics. I'm marketing this human experience. This is on business. When I'm marketing, I visualize it. Now, for the most part, people can visualize something that ain't true. People can conceptualize it. People look for when they like we do with race, which is applied to black or white. There is no such thing. They demand things that is conceptualized rather than things that is factual. Textualized, contextualized, and they become actualized when it comes to accepting of facts. We don't accept those facts. We deal with cognitive dissonance, lack of prejudice, self-fulfillment, problem-solving, spontaneity, creativity, and morality. The dynamics of marketing. Go ahead. I say there's 5 learning social disabilities. I always make my case that we suffer from SLD, a social learning disorder disability. Where's that people put? Dr. King says we need to move from a thing-oriented society to a people-oriented society. So, feelings of inadequacy, alienation, grievancy, discrepancy, and indifference. Go on. Inadequacy. I want some participation in this, if y'all still up. Inadequacy. Excuse me. A feeling of not, a feeling of not being good enough. One's inability to deal with life. Self-doubt, lack of self-worth. When you have done the best you could, and life experiences continuously beat you down, you ask yourself the question, am I good enough? Yes, you are. You are good enough. You may not be able to articulate yourself in a manner way in which people are good at, but yet you're still good enough. But these life experiences, man, continue to beat you down. But yet, I say to you, you are good enough. So we must overcome feelings of inadequacy. Thank you, brother. We also must deal with another social learning disability: alienation, lack of sympathy, interest, and enthusiasm. When one's environment has become, this is also associated with depression. And when one's environment has become ill-nurtured, uncultivated, hostile, as Elijah Muhammad said in the wilderness of North America, uncultivated, unrefined, but uncultivated, hostile, not caring, he or she will be more likely to take on the identity of the environment. No one cares. You feel you become alienated. Go ahead, alienation. Grievances. There is resentment, self-hatred, disdain, as Dr. Clark would say, we have for ourselves. We deal with unhealthy anger, animosity, distrust, frustration, anxiety attacks. As a result, misplaced anger is used, directed at the wrong people. Now, don't we attribute something to people that's not so? We paint a broad brush. The Vikings are supposed to be white. Some white people came to, another white people came to the Vikings and said, you accept Christianity. The Vikings said, man, look, that ain't for us. They said, that ain't for us. Sometimes we misrepresent people. We attribute things to people that aren't even so. We paint a broad brush. There must be a fitted release point as it pertains to the deep-seated resentment, self-hatred, disdain that some of us have for ourselves. Discrepancy. Lack of compatibility prevents us from learning how to reason with each other, sensibly and respectfully. Communicate with each other. The words we use to communicate, if we generally want to learn how to coexist without conflict, it must start with self, which means what you're saying to yourself on a daily basis. The challenge is to live with yourself, respect yourself, be happy. Happiness is the joy that you feel when you're in pursuit of your potential. Love yourself by way of how the way you treat yourself, as well as you treat others, regardless of their status in life. You hear it. You heard this term? Extroversion. Extroverted people tend to have higher self-esteem. Extroversion can make it easier for people to approach strangers, talk in large groups, and appear friendly. This can cause others to perceive extroverts more positively, potentially. Further, both self-esteem. People with low self-esteem may be anxious about talking to unfamiliar people and more uncomfortable in group settings. I say that we know low self-esteem if we hold each other in high esteem. Problem-solving skills. We need to deal with it. Problem-solving skills build self-determination skills, such as goal settings, decision-making, self-advocacy. Go on, bro.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
When you say, is this extroverts have higher self-esteem, what's your basis for that?
Well, my basis is that because, it's like the key word is extra.
Uh-huh.
And extra means that they will go the extra mile, of breaking through any self-doubt or anything that may get in their way from building their self-esteem. Okay. All right. Here we go. Variety of problem-solving process, but each process consists of a series of steps. Identifying the problem, searching for possible solutions, searching the most optimal solution, and implementing a possible solution. It is useful to view problem-solving as a cycle. Say Jesus is so-called Jesus is born, Jesus did, Jesus died, he resurrects. It's the cycle. It's a cycle. Cycles of development. The so-called 4 seasons: it's winter, spring, summer, and fall. Cycles. We all go through cycles. But the key is to this here. It's identify. We evaluate. We explore. We look for alternatives. For most part, when people become very hostile to one another, they are out there. Their options or their alternatives become limited, so they're prone to get into violent behavior, violent activity. You can go on, bro. This is what I say about problems. You'll tell me the obstacles are what you see when you take your eyes off your goal. Keep going. Just as a reminder, we are not here to open small minds. We are here to connect. Notice that the universe only speaks one language. That's the language of frequency. The messenger can only deliver the message to those who are a vibrational match to the message. So don't stress yourself out saying things to people who can't hear you. Just a peaceful, caring, loving, compassionate, serene environment. Go ahead, man. You go on. 7 dangers of human virtue. Wealth without work. Mental labor precedes physical labor. Pleasure without conscience, which means we want the pleasure and we don't want the responsibility that comes with the pleasure. Knowledge without character. Business without ethics. Science without humanity. Religion without sacrifice. And politics without principle. Go ahead. Rules of engagement. When we engage one another and when we engage this human experience. I say this here, and I want some feedback on this one. Number 1, Before the eyes can see, they must be temporarily be incapable of tears in emotion. Can this happen? Because too much emotion without enough logic. They must get out of the way to hear the truth and overcome the hurt, the pain, and the stress. Get our emotions out of the way.
You were asking about
Yeah.
I guess he's asking what y'all think about that.
I guess I understand that. Meaning to be able to have a sound mind. That's what I'm getting from it. To be able to have a sound mind.
You got to.
If you all, pollution and stuff like that, it's all for you to see a sound mind and make a decision and stuff. That's what
I got you. No, you know, that's right.
So how do you tell people that it's hard, that it's very emotional to like really just
Yeah. My thing is this here is that I think I give an example this here. Not that I tell anyone really, but an example was and I always like this as an example where there was a guy that was running for office. His name was Taft in Cleveland. And he was running against another guy. I forgot Stokes. Yeah. You may be familiar with that in Cleveland. Stokes was the black guy in Cleveland. Some other guy. I like this example because Taft was a white guy and he wasn't from Cleveland, but Stokes was. Stokes did a meeting in a town hall where it was white area, right? And they didn't want him to do that, right? And he went on and did it anyway. And the challenge was that he was in a town hall with a lot of whites. He's a black guy. Taft is not even from Cleveland. And the white folks got up wrong. But he was telling the truth. You know what I'm saying? But they were so caught up in on their emotions that they couldn't hear the truth, man. But they were dealing with some hurt themselves and some pain that they unable to get over. But he told them the truth. And that helped them win the first mayor, I think, of Cleveland, black man Cleveland. Yeah. So I'm saying we got to get beyond this our emotions, that's where we can. Go ahead.
Lamar Johnson, I was looking at him on YouTube. He was addressing LGBT, and he said the first thing is emotions out. Emotions are not, he said, we're not going to get into it. So he said, we can agree on that. Before we get started, then we'll be good.
I'm emotional because you brought up Lamar Johnson.
Yeah, I know. I know that, right?
Because he ain't but no, I want to give a little pushback.
Yes, sir.
I think that, and I think it's one thing to say get your emotions out of the way. I think it's another to say deal with your emotions. I think it can come across when you say get your emotions out the way. It'll come across as a impossible feat.
Good question, brother Father Sam. Yeah.
So I think we have to, as you said, those group of people that deal with their emotions, they had their stuff, they brought their stuff up in there.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the goal is not to get rid of emotions, but that's what dehumanizing act. When we say get over your emotions.
Mm-hmm.
Sure. So I think Sister Trina did a wonderful job, and she does a wonderful job at that. She says, well, what I think is to end here is to kind of come to some level, what do you say, Sister Trina? It was like some center, if I could say, come to some center of balance. She didn't use those words, but that's what I took from what she said. Versus, just, and as your slide says, too much emotion without enough lives, right?
Yeah.
So it's not getting rid of one or the other, because if you do that, then you're going to be very stoic, and you're going to be dehumanizing. You're not going to take people hurts and pains into consideration, which would cause more problems. So yeah, I agree with the with Rick. Though.
That's good. So somehow I expressed it. Now, the thing is though, because we know that slavery was a dehumanization process, and the way to treat somebody a certain way, you have to depersonalize them.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? So I'm clear about that. So, but yeah, so that's why I say it is the balance, because the key to social life is balance. You know, and they say, but that's balance. The key to social life is balance. Yeah. And Islam would call it Tawheed. Go ahead.
So one of the things I think would be to ask why is the person ask the why? Why are we emotional about this?
Yeah.
So trying to get to the root.
You know, Brother Bilal, when I think about even what you said about Umar Johnson, right? Umar said that, but the reality is most of us don't get our emotions out the way for that very community. So even the day we were having a conversation, we couldn't get our emotions, our values, our core beliefs out the way to really even have that type of conversation. So, like, the reality is, I mean, I researched, I looked. I'm not gonna say I researched the most, but I did research. Mm-hmm. And there's an argument whether this thing is natural, not natural, what it is. One thing I can tell you is I don't know. You know, and there's no evidence one way or another that's conclusive. I can say that. But as far as responses, you know, as a response, as Brother Kevin posed the question, I think that's responses. We respond, how we respond to traumatic events. If we're talking about one who's responding, but the whole thing about if people were born and people this, I don't think we can tell, because the reality is, even if somebody was to say it was a biological thing and it was put in the food, then you still don't know. You know, so it's kind of like people will literally believe they were born. So when we take the account for people who says I was 5 and I already knew this. I was 3 and I already knew this. I was born this way. They literally, that's their account. So that's just like anybody's account. When they have an account, I think it's to be taken into consideration.
Yeah, I realize too that people, I say, only respond to the extent of the damage and the injury that has been done to humanity. That's a killer.
Say that again.
People respond to the extent of the injury or the damage that has been done to his or her humanity.
Mm.
Yeah. So, then we deal with 2 for me. Before, this is a tough one here. Before you can hear, you must temporarily lose your sensitiveness, and be coherent. It's a rough one. We are sensitive beings, you know. Mm-hmm. But we want to be coherent, I guess, in our sensitivity.
Not be sensitive. Mm-hmm. Sensitive. Mm-hmm. Again, when I say you're going to be sensitive to something, and that's just the normal human experience. Yeah. You just don't want to be too sensitive to where you don't get it.
Because we have these senses, you know. Mm-hmm. And I think that the difference is in the use of it. You know? Mm-hmm.
I agree with it, but then I think sometimes is it about delivery as well? Is it? Do you take into consideration about delivery? Because it depends on sometimes it's a way of something's being delivered.
Being expressed, yeah.
I mean,
and the tone.
Yeah, basically. Yeah. But is it? I don't know. Is it still meaning that you're sensitive, even if someone told you maybe a little bit aggressive or whatever? I don't know.
Yeah. No, it's a good point, because I think that when you deal with most arguments or conflicts, for the most part, what can bring about a conflict is the wrong tone of voice.
Go ahead. I will argue that, you know, that's relative, you know, to each individual. And I think that the important aspect would be that we all learn to be able to, like, if somebody does come at us in an aggressive way, we learn, like you did, to look at and look for, if you disagree with what somebody says, look for what you can agree and look at for what they're really trying to say. You know, because really, in some degree, that their sensitivity is showing if there's a sensitive spot for them. So then it to communicate, we all have to be able to manage that level of sensitiveness. And now we're not going to all be perfect in our delivery, because each individual people require different types of deliveries. So it's not, I can't gauge, and sometimes it doesn't matter how soft and mellow a person says a thing, and I know this from experience. I say things very soft and very mellow, and even that's taken as condescending and all types of things. It's kind of got to go with, we as individuals have to deal with those feelings. We have to deal with those feelings, and until we really deal with those feelings, nobody's gonna be able to come and tell me anything about any. And I don't care if I tap you like this, if I punch you like this. We have to be able to deal with those feelings.
Yeah, I think. Good. Yes, ma'am.
I think what you're really saying, the key is not in the saying, it's more so in the listening. You have to go back to that open-minded, mindful listening in order for the problem to be solved, in order to have the real engagement. Somebody's got to be able to really listen.
Yeah.
And that should be the person who's speaking as well as the other person. Because both of them should have a turn to speak, and both of them should have a turn to listen. And listening is really important.
You're right, misunderstanding. I mean, I went through an experience like that recently. The person, I understood it, and I listened to them. I understood what they were saying, and feedback to them gave them the understanding that I understood what they were saying. But their problem is deeper than that, from the past hurt that they, gone through, that hasn't been resolved yet. So you get an understanding of why the present situation, they're being treated separately, but the past is kind of blocking them from stepping forward.
You know what's interesting? One of the things people say to me, they say, you don't understand me. and I listen to them, I say, you don't understand me. And after a while, I say to them, I understand what you're saying. I repeat exactly what you're saying back. But I don't agree. That's what the problem is. And lots of times we want people to agree and not understand. I understand exactly what you're saying. I just don't agree with it. That's right. And I can say it just like that, but that doesn't make the person feel any better.
Right.
But that's not to say we shouldn't approach it. I think we should approach, in a way that is less aggressive. I mean, as smooth as possible, because or respond because I can come in here and I can tap Kevin on the shoulder. Well, I'm not mess with Kevin today. I can mess with anybody, right? I can say something, hey, something, and that person can blow up. Now the thing is that if that person can blow up, now that's fine. It's how do I now respond in return to them blowing up? Because that might have hit a spot. So I mean, that person could have not blown up, but maybe now I can talk. I can walk them through that process possibly to when they can calm down.
Yes.
De-escalate, they say de-escalate the problem. That's good stuff. This is I'm glad, because there's also a teaching that said that they use the word argument, that we argue in the best of ways. You know what I'm saying? Because we want to bring out the best of us, the noble qualities that's in us. You know what I'm saying? We want to bring that out. So this is good. I appreciate this. This is awesome. Anyone else before I proceed on? Okay. Number 3, before the voice can speak in one another's presence, it must have lost the power to wound. knowing when there is balance, understanding speaks clearly. So I realize the greatest distance between us all is a misunderstanding.
What is it? It must use the power to wound.
Yeah, you know, to hurt.
Yeah.
You can go. Oh, you can go. All right. Still talking about the human experience, man. This good stuff, man. In the healing circle. We're now in the healing circle, man. Okay. Before the soul can stand on his own merit of honor, dignity, and integrity in the presence of one another, his feet must be washed and cleansed of the heart, spirit, as we using all these words. The heart of the intellect, when knowledge is applied, it becomes intelligence, which means we must have this grounding, this centering, this balance, the intellect and the heart, I should say, is used as well. It must be centered, it must be grounded. And when I say knowledge, when it's applied, it becomes intelligence. And 5, before progress can be pursued, the mind must consistently be emptied and renewed. That's good stuff. All right, rules of engagement again. We must be impeccable with our word. That's integrity. The word speaks with integrity. That's what I say. I said I learned to protect and defend my integrity, and the weapon that I use is dignity, but I do it the benevolent way. What's going on here? Something. So yeah, we get ready to read it. Do not hold in self-contempt, meaning an inferior position of gossip leading to division and fear as it pertains to each other. Use the power of your words in the direction of truth, which is the cause for me that affects your reality as we learn to distinguish myths from reality. 7, do not take anything personally. Nothing others do is because of you. What others say and do is a projection of their reality. When you are mature and secure with yourself as it pertains to others' opinions and actions, you won't be a victim of needless suffering.
One of the things with that, that's a good one. Is back to knowledge of understanding. Having that, you can move away from being the person who's opinionated. A lot of times I say something to somebody because they don't know me. They'll say, well, that's your opinion. But they're thinking first. And then when they don't quite get it, then they conclude that, that's your opinion. And I'm like, no, it's not my opinion. That's your escape. Yeah. That's not my opinion, that's fact.
Yes, sir. All right. We thank you. Appreciate that. Here we go. 8, don't make assumptions. Find the courage to ask questions. And to express what you really want. Communicate with others as clearly as you can to avoid misunderstanding. It is said that the worst distance between two people is a misunderstanding, sadness, and drama. With just this one agreement, you can completely transform your life. We want to continue to transform our lives in the best of ways. 9, always do your best. Will change from moment to moment. It will be different. Will be different when you are healthy as opposed to sick. Under any circumstances, do your best and you will avoid self-judgment, self-abuse, and regret. And we go connection and attachment, as we was talking about the theme. Do you know that there's a difference between connection and attachment? It has a direct effect on your life. It is true. It's within it is within a biological to connect one to another, to seek out and have meaningful relationships one with another. Besides our biology connection, there is also an energy connection. It is a connection that runs deep at every level of the soul. Connection. When you have a connection with someone, you recognize a part of you, and that person is a familiar feeling, but in a different form. Now, stop right there. You look at the heart, right? You know, if you look at the word heart, what does it closely sound like? It sounds like hard, hard. People place their heart in women. It's their heart. Go on. You'll figure, you'll get it later. Attachment. When you have an attachment to someone, you have put your happiness and desires in someone else's hands. You are willing to give someone else the right to control your life. He's fighting against it. Right? Trying not to go in that hole, bro. Struggling. You know what I'm saying? We don't want to go in that hole, bro. You know what I'm saying? Go ahead, you can go ahead next time. Huh? Because you said your attachment to someone, it says when you have an attachment to someone, you have put your happiness and desires in someone else's hands. It's going down the hole, bro. Go ahead. That's a good one here. This is a solution. We still deal with the human experience. Attract what you respect. Reflect what you desire. Become what you respect. And mirror what you admire.
What's your, what do you say is the difference between attachment and connection?
Yeah. Attachment is like a host or a parasite that you become attached to. You can become attached to a fixation in our mind. You can become attached to an imaginary hurt. It's not even there. We still can hold on to the hurt. We gotta let it go. We have to let it go. But a connection is a flow of energy that constantly continuing to strengthen you, continue to push you. It doesn't suck the life out of it. I can hold on to a past relationship. I'm attached to it. And it's just sucking the life out of me. I can hold on to a past hurt. It's sucking the life out of me. I can hold on to a past thought.
So you just make your own decision as to which one is an attachment.
I'm making my own decision.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's required upon me to serve and make my own decision. No one makes decisions for me. Yeah. Sure. Now, and like I said, that the source of all conflict is attachment. And that's an Eastern philosophy. That the source of all conflict is attachment. So you have to let it go.
So what's the difference between attachment and
Huh?
What's the difference again? I was kind of, it was, you
Attachment
know,
is
I
something
only got like 2 hours sleep last night.
Yeah, attachment is something that you just hold on to. It's like a parasite. It's something that's holding on.
Okay.
It has attached itself to you. You know, it's like in a carrier.
What about your children? You're attached to your children.
You have a connection with them, right?
But I guess he thinks, I think attachment is, it could be attachment to children is not a dream.
Right.
Yeah, that's why I said you just make up your own decision as to which one you want to call it.
Well,
It's more of an inspirational.
none of that child is acting out and getting better.
We could have said better. That's right. That's right.
Well, yeah, I think attachment from, you know, especially from Eastern philosophy, has more to do with, like they talk about they talk about different levels with material.
Material,
right?
yeah.
Everything outside of you, right? Yeah. So I mean, even your child can become that, right? Yeah. So now your only reason and your aspirations and your happiness and your pleasure and all these things are as a result of that which is outside of you, right? So a connection is, so we know that if you attach to a thing, soon we know things are transient. This is Eastern talk, right? We know things are transient, so you will be disturbed. Now, if someone passes on, right, and you grieve, but you understand and you know you can move on, then that's healthy.
That's right.
But if you're so attached that life ends and you feel like there's no other reason to live, in other words, that's like Brother Kevin says, putting too much energy in anything outside of you, right? I'm saying if that's your child, if that's your mom, if that's whoever. I mean, I would love for people to be attached to me. However, I wouldn't really. I want people to care for me. But like my wife, I tell my wife, look, if I pass away tomorrow, y'all make sure Camille go find her a man. You see what I'm saying? So what I'm saying is, there's no, not at 41 do I want her to be, and hopefully she lives to 80 or something, right? 90 or something, right? I don't want her to be so attached to me and she's depressed for the rest of her life because she's so attached to me. Now, I know she loves me. I know she cares for me, but I don't want me to be the breath in her lungs. You see what I'm saying? Where there's no reason to move on. Now, that's her choice. That's her choice. She can do that. But the reality is, if we want to be happy and identify with true happiness, attachment has more to do with detachment, or the lack is more about what is inside of us, right? So that connection, as Brother Kevin is saying, I have a connection with you, but I'm not dependent on you. I have a connection with we need air. I'm sorry. We attach the eggs, but but the overall thing is those things that are outside of ourselves that are not a requirement for life, but let's not get don't allow those to be our end all be all.
That's why talking about Jesus philosophy. That's why some people became what you call hermits. To go and just give up all materialistic things at that time. Just to let go, and now you begin to heal on oneself. Totally.
So you have a connection with your children, but when we are so attached to our children, to some degree, we live for our children, and we will ruin their lives. So we have to be connected. I think that's a beautiful thing. Connected, but not attached. You said, Mom, you like that one?
I like that.
Something on
Is this? I'm sorry.
You can go. Huh?
What's the gentleman's name? Floyd, Minnesota.
Some of the mayor.
Floyd. Yeah.
Oh, George Floyd.
Now that was a hurting thing. I mean, I ain't never gotten hurt. I'm serious. I wasn't hurt by something else. But I ain't been hurt in witnessing something, like that experience, But what I was able to do was I was able to detach myself emotionally and say, well, they ruined him. The officer that was actually doing the act, he was ruined by the system itself. Because he had done other things prior to that, and they just swept it under what they did. So he had things going on with him that weren't that way, so he's wrong. That's how I was looking at it. So the other people, they get very emotional about it. Like that. I was looking at that, he was one of his human beings.
You're talking about the way that you looked at it. That's just like the sister says, she liked your definition, the way that you expressed it. And that's the problem. And not a problem, but I say that, we all have needed self-expression. We have to make the connections, you know what I'm saying? We really do. But we go on says, most of us are totally unaware that our inner conversations are the causes of the circumstances of our life. Circumstances makes us other than ourselves. We go on. Self-control is strength. You have to get to a point where your mood doesn't shift based on the insignificant actions of others. Don't allow others to control the direction of your life. And I know this brother is good at that. Before you argue, it's a good one. Before you argue with a person, ask yourself if that person even mentally mature enough to grasp the concept of different perspectives. Because if not, there's absolutely no point. Keep going, man. Keep going. We're on our way to a close. Your value don't decrease based on someone's inability to see your worth. We're healing. We're in the healing. So we're healing. Healing circle. Helping a person will not necessarily change the world, but it can change the world for that person. There's my man there, Buddha.
Black boy, right?
Yeah, man. Don't tell nobody. You don't always talk calling me, man. You're close by. You used to believe me. But listen, all that we are is a result of what we have thought. You can go on. There's a pledge that complimentary has. There is no family without individual. The value of family and individual concerns. There is no community without family. The value of community concerns. There is no country without community. The value of country concerns. There is no environment without the spiritual wisdom of discipline that it brings. The value of environmental concerns. There is no joy without the happiness that it brings. The value of joy and happiness concerns. There will be no me without you. The value of me and you concerns. That's a Kevin, by the way. You go on, man. This is the final slide of the healing circle. When it comes to the human experience, thought-provoking ideas that resolve Afrocentric culture, activities, in TMAC, distinguishing connection versus attachment. Everyone, let's say this together. Okay, let's read this together. On the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Today will never come again. Be a blessing, be a friend, encourage someone. Take the time to care. Let your words heal and not wound. I want to thank you all for the time, the energy, the effort, and so forth and so on. Yes, that concludes the healing circle session today. Human experience. Thank you. Thank you.
Questions, comments, concerns?
Yeah, any questions, comments, concerns, or challenges? Oh, man.
Hold up, did everybody say no? Wasn't nothing?
Oh, no questions. Anybody had no questions, concerns, challenges?
I got a question. I think you were talking about things from the attachment, I don't know if it's dependency and attachment, level of dependency. So would that be in line with being dependent? Dependency?
Say it again.
Then answer.
Attachment we align with being dependent.
Yeah.
We align with being dependent.
To a degree that you feel dependent on things that are outside of yourself, that are not necessarily necessary for you to live healthy. Yeah.
Well, what about relationship? Right?
Mm-hmm.
Is that something that's not an attachment? So we said that, attachment is some way, somehow,
So remember, the key word was that is not necessary, right? So when we say not necessary, we're implying that those things you don't need to survive. We need relationships, but do we need that relationship?
So attachment can be healthy.
I can't hear you,
You have a healthy attachment. So we say that, I guess attachment and connection is the kind of thing. So we're saying that I can have healthy connection. People have healthy attachment.
I think, Brother Kevin, you describe it as a parasite.
Yeah.
Meaning a parasite take from the host. So I'm thinking being attached, it's not a connection. Just kind of I feel like the smothering type of, well, not smothering, but we just draining, you know, not balance on that. A connection, I feel like is a mutual type of thing. That's why I got from it.
Good stuff.
What you were saying.
That's good stuff.
So we create that harmony, and you both get it. You both get it. Take it instead of just grabbing onto their body.
Yeah.
I just have to put in words. This is the word. I think that connection, attachment, everything. I guess when you explain, when you define attachment, really clears it up. You know, that's like saying to attach to it, you can't do it out to deliver it. So that's important.
It's hard to let go, ain't it, man? It's hard. It's hard.
It's all based on what your belief is. That's what makes it hard.
I feel like you going Miles Davis position.
I know.
I'm just like,
I'm done.
How you been doing the whole time? My Justin was like, no connection. No attachment, no connection.
What's up, man? This was actually, man. I want to thank. This was healing for me. This was a beautiful. I thank my ancestors. You know, those who my immediate ancestors and those before me. I'm just on their shoulders. It's really
And you're doing a good job.
okay, you know, I'm hungry, man. Yeah, hungry, man. Thank you.
I ain't never heard Bilal that easy, so you must be going good. When he walked in the door, I said, oh boy. I said, I ain't got enough energy for that Nike hat. Oh man, I said, I don't got enough energy for the Nike hat. I said, we had one 2 weeks ago. So you can't compare. Thank you for the grace. It don't matter. You know, it don't matter. You know me. I said to Daddy, I said, you just talking too much. He's like, you doing too much.